Okay, last slot, so hopefully won't take too long this. So one of the things we're concerned about is that if this is a municipality or a hospital or something of that nature, and they don't feel that they possess the expertise in-house to be able to deliver a project, that will deter them from even trying. So we're looking into what there was available in terms of building this internal capacity. Now, an awful lot of the literature that exists about this seems to be in the field of international development. These kind of NGOs, what have you, working in third world countries, and they're kind of very interested in building the capacity within those countries to be able to take over when they kind of withdraw from their activities there. So this particular source here is the United Nations Development Program, and all of them seem to actually kind of, there's ones from Oxfam and others, but they all seem to have this kind of a five-stage step process to it. And so what we try to do is look at what those 5 stages are and try and kind of reinterpret that from the perspective of the district energy field. So the first stage is to sort of engage with stakeholders and find out what it is that they are interested in. And I wasn't going to go into kind of detail on this particular bit because Helen was meant to be talking about that in terms of stakeholder engagement. But the second bit was to identify the tasks that you feel might be required to deliver and operate a project. Now, this is a scenario. It's not exhaustive, it's not prescriptive, it's just an idea of what are the particular tasks that would be needed to actually deliver a project. General manager, technical manager, and there's divided into 2 sides. One side is, in technical, is the development stage, which is project management, design, specification, procurement, construction, and then once the thing is up and running, hand that over to operation and maintenance. Financial management, metering, billing, revenue collection, invoicing, payments, and communication, stakeholder liaison, present PR, internal relations, customer relations, and complaints. So I should actually say is that within accounts, we ought to have kind of budgets, profit and loss accounts, and all that sort of stuff like that, but pressing ahead. So actually assessing the internal skills that already exist. And this would take the form of a skills audit, so actually kind of going around existing staff, finding out what kind of skills that they possess, and then that actually helps you identify what it is that you're missing. And you then actually have to devise a strategy of how to acquire those particular skills and expertise that are missing. You may actually have kind of people who've got those skills internally, but if they're kind of fully stretched, it's no use actually relying on them, because if their day job is kind of occupying all of their time, they're not going to have capacity to go and do a new project, in which cases that you may need to either expand that resource available internally by recruiting more people, or kind of find it elsewhere. But a key task in doing all this is to actually write a job description for each particular role. So having done that, and this is just a kind of an idea of how this could be done. So assess the tasks required, skills audit, develop a strategy, and then one goes through this process. The key one is the project manager. There is no kind of way around this. This is a kind of a pivotal person even if you actually kind of go down the concession route, is that you will need somebody to manage the relationship with the concession manager, a concession provider on your behalf. And so therefore you need somebody internally who's going to do that. But in terms of these other things, it could be through a concession where you're kind of putting the whole thing out as a DBOM, or it may be short-term where you're actually like splitting a DB, design and build, and operation and maintenance into different contracts. It could be a whole DBOM over a sort of comparatively short period of time, say 10 years, in which time you're able to like develop that capacity, so when the contract comes to an end, is that you can simply take over the management of it. Or you can recruit core posts, and those, say, for example, the project manager, finance manager, and then kind of augment those with short-term posts just to kind of plug in gaps as they are needed, because they're not going to be necessarily over a long time. Or they can be contracted out with posts with to people with the required skills. One then kind of like brings those in-house and then consolidate the organization, and then go round the circle again in undertaking some sort of review. So this is essentially sort of saying the same thing that I've just mentioned. A number of routes, whichever route you need, is that you do need to have the project manager. Would be helpful if this kind of person actually has an engineering background, but it doesn't need to be kind of absolutely detailed, just as they're able to speak the same language and as consultants or designers or operators, so that they know what they're talking about. Actually, kind of that person needs to be given prime responsibility, so there's a focus management. If it's split, is that you get confusion and things become difficult. Other roles may not be needed in until a later stage, and so, for example, there are active markets, a supply chain for technical design, legal services, financial management. You can go out and hire an accountant for a short-term contract out, take a particular piece of work to them. You don't actually have to have that person employed internally, but in the long term, you most probably do actually want to create a kind of post of financial management. So as I kind of mentioned it in the schematic earlier, could be through kind of long concessions, short-term contracts, part-time employment, and this kind of consolidates and moves to full-time as the project matures. So very kind of brief consolidation, as I mentioned before, and then when you kind of get to kind of review, just go around it again, but also give consideration to training, the capacity of people. If they're actually kind of overloaded, they're going to be stressed, and that's going to have like a blowback on you. So, please avoid that. And in the end, is that as the thing kind of grows, it may be that you actually create a human resources department, that this becomes their kind of full-time responsibility. I think that's it. Where's Lashmi gone? Has she kind of gone to find the technical people for the well, seeing as that she's not here, does anybody have any questions about that or any comments? Eric, I can always rely on you.
When you laid out your early chart in there, you had a financial manager.
Yeah.
And kind of a technical manager on the development side. What about raising money for development? Do you see that as being the general manager or champion, or where on that very front end when you're conceptualizing a project and trying to drive it into development? Are you raising funds, setting up a legal structure? What's your...
when we did this, as we made the assumption that was found. This is really about the organization that is going to kind of deliver this thing, rather than actually raise the money. That in a way be the role of the project sponsor, and this is what they would do once they actually kind of have got that all sorted out. Once they've done the pre-feasibility, raised the money, done the detailed techno-economic modeling, all of that stuff like that. So you're ready to go. What capacity do you need to deliver it?
So in that model, where do you have business development for expansion? Is it sales, marketing? Would you fit that in somewhere? Make a new box? Get a wider select?
That's a very good question, because in the example, in the case study that I gave of WIC, is that they've actually kind of had development subcontracted to a specific organization which is separate from the people doing the O&M. I think I'll have to kind of go back and reevaluate this particular graphic.
We have to figure out, this one thing to figure out is who's actually going to be responsible for approaching. It starts as a stakeholder responsibility, but then there's a whole, once you're converting that stakeholder to somebody who might actually buy heating or cooling from you, and then there's a whole bunch of new considerations.
Yeah. Fair point. How are we doing, Lashmi? No, I'm concluded.
Okay, well, we decided to not show the video because it's something we'll post on the website. But what I'd like to do is use this time to just open it up for general discussion. We're all here together, and we could get some last-minute questions out. I would suggest you come to the mic because Peter can then have access to the audio. So I know it's late in the day. We can also network with each other, so if we don't have any questions, we can conclude the workshop. Michael.
Tell me what's going to happen with the publication. When's that going to be available?
It's available. The report is available on the IDA website, and we'll send out a link to all of you. It's also available on the IEA website. So that's.
So Michael, to Don's question, we have found that really that you've got the general manager and then you have the technical and financial. We really need the customer, which is going to be, and the customer side can be broken into multiple parts. One is ongoing customer service. The other one is then that business development and just growth.
Yeah, great. Can I modify that slide?
Yeah. I also wanted to ask Michael a question that is, how do you...
Which Michael? That Michael or this one?
Any Michael.
Okay.
All Michaels in the room. The question is, business development is such an art. It's really such an art. I mean, for some of the other roles, there is training, there's some standard skills building, but where do you send people to get business development skills? Unless you hire them out from a competitor or somebody who's done, that's one possible solution.
It's an interesting question because, at home in the UK is that I kind of work very closely with the University of Edinburgh, and they're kind of doing these pan-European studies, and they say when they're going to go across to Denmark, is that everybody there who's working in the field seems to have an MSc or an MBA or something of that nature, specifically about district heating. Now, you can go out and get these kind of MBAs generally, and I noticed Jim had picked one up here in Arizona. But, is there anything that is absolutely applicable to our sector? And in the UK, just recently, the University of Cranfield, which was the first academic institution in the UK that offered an MBA program, they've introduced an MSc on district heating management. So, maybe that is going to continue. Maybe it'll be kind of added to existing kind of MBA programs, so you can take it as an option, this, that, the next thing. And so hopefully that's kind of like the way of the future.
That's a start. I also realize that, at 4:15, a bunch of forums, these are IDA Birds of a Feather group, are going to get together, and there is a business development forum where people doing business development get together and talk about what it is that challenges them or some of the best practices they have.
I just add one kind of thing is that at a previous presentation in Canada is that we had a presentation from Patrick Roham from Calgary, and he kind of said that he actually has to approach a building and make the proposition to them 5 times before that they will connect. First time to kind of explain what it's all about, this, that, the next thing. Will you connect? No. Second time is that all these things stack up. It's actually going to work for you. It's actually going to be beneficial for you financially. Is that the next thing? No. And has to go through this 5 times before he eventually gets them to say yes. So that was a good rule of thumb, I thought.
I think that perseverance. I have questions for the audience. Is anybody thinking of? Are you in the concept stage? Is anybody here in the concept stage? Do you want to tell us a little bit about where you are and what anxieties you have, or how are you doing? You want to?
A lot of questions. Sorry about consideration. So, my name is Matt Vansfield. I'm the energy manager at Smith College in Massachusetts. And we have a fairly old, extensive steam distribution system, with also a central chilled water plant. And we've signed up to be carbon neutral by 2030, and that has prompted us to reimagine our energy systems. So we've commissioned a preliminary study to develop a concept. And now I'm kind of here figuring out how to advance what was proposed to us to the next level. And so some of the questions are how do we take that concept and figure out what does success look like amongst the faculty, amongst the trustees of the college, facilities, instructors, et cetera. How do we sort of start to talk about phasing? At what point does it make sense to contact an engineering firm and bring them in to start doing design work for us? And sort of how do we start to organize our efforts around the concept that we have one that can mold that into something that actually fits?
Yeah, well, thank you for stepping up because, Smith College is from my neck of the woods, Massachusetts. And I was going to just, I'll introduce you to some folks from UMass Amherst who have sort of done some of this work. But also, there's a Department of Energy Northeast CHP Technical Assistance Partnership that does help. We talked about early concept level grants and funds, just the $15,000, $20,000 that's needed for you to start building the first few pieces of what's going to be, the plan that carries through the rest of it. But a lot of colleges are signing up to be carbon neutral, and they have to come up with both technology and financial resources to meet those goals. So campuses have done it. Many of them have done it. They've been doing it over and over again. So by coming to IDEA, you actually will be able to meet with a lot of them. I don't know if Juan Antiveros is still around. Is there anybody else from the campus sector in our midst still? Is there another gentleman there?
There's a speaker at the microgrid session from the University of Pittsburgh, and they have a fairly new steam system serving a portion of their university, so it's probably worth talking to. His name's Michael Rooney.
Yeah.
IDEA also runs a conference specially for campus energy, which usually takes place in February, and so you'll get a real focus, a real concentration of those sort of folk at that event. Where's that planned for next year, Malashmi?
I think next year it's in Baltimore.
Oh, there you go.
Baltimore, Johns Hopkins.
Not too far away from you.
There you are. So, the good thing about IDA is it's a community that wants to do things right. And they're willing to at least help you cross the road so that you are, on the right side of things. And then, of course, you have to invest in your project. But you've come to the right place, and Northampton is not far from where we are, so we can certainly help you out. And, take the time during this week to meet up with, there's people here from UBC, I think trying to think, UT Austin, Tufts is here. The Director of Engineering from Tufts will be here. So network and meet up with people, and I wish you well. Thank you for staying for the day. I thought we would go late. Since we're ending early, I would like for you to take the time to meet up with other people and continue the conversations. I know that there were some questions about data that you had from Micah Hearn. And we also have experts in our midst. I want to thank my colleagues, Michael King, Anna Chittum, Jung-Jun Lee, if he's still with us. You know, Jung-Jun Lee is, I think the time difference is 15 hours to Korea. My phone conversations with him are odd hours, so, and Michael has come all the way from the UK.
8 hours.
8 hours, so please join me in thanking all of our presenters, and thank you for being here for the day with me.